Hi, it's Robbie from Southern California. Keep that in mind. And today I'm going to tell you about this beautiful pepper tree that, well, after having it for all these years, it had to come out. Not our choice, and there it is today. But we'll get more into that in a few moments. There it is. Let's go see what it looked like. Now, from the house to the left, if it would have come down, it could have taken the house. But that's not the reason it had to come out. So let's take a walk up here and see what it looks like and understand that we are in an area that is known for fires, though thank goodness we have not had any major fires through here. But you can see how it is so close to the road, and if that pepper tree would have snapped, which it could have at any time, because we have one that did break in half, it could have come down and taken the whole house because it was that big. But look at why they had to come out and take it. We, thank goodness, did not have to pay for it. See that line going through it? That is a power line. I didn't even realize myself how it was going smack through that tree. See where that power line is? And then it connects to the top of the house. And it gets windy up here. You can see the canyon. You know how I talk about the breeze. If that would have brushed up and continued to brush back and forth and any part of that power line started to wear out or just get caught on the tree and snap, it could have created a major problem. Now, we didn't catch this. This is utility companies. They go through and they check all the trees now. Due to all the issues that have been in California, they're really diligent now on going through and checking trees. And they came to us and told us that this tree needs to be trimmed. And that is the tree now down below the wood chips. But it's not a total loss, and we'll get back to that. Years ago, we started getting wood chips. And here is Gary telling his story on how he was moving wood chips.
You wear a face mask, or at minimum when you're working with wood chips, because of the dust and because of the mold or fungal spores too.
My husband normally doesn't look like a raccoon. And you guys are only halfway through now?
Halfway through.
Wow. Okay, well, keep on trucking.
Okay.
So that was 6 years ago, and a lot of these wood chips you see was moved into his garden for the bedding, for the top, because he just had basically clay, and on the top, whatever he didn't take care, he just spread out. I used a little in my container gardening. I didn't use that much, and sometimes I'd put it around the plants. And if you're interested, you can go back and see all the videos from 6 years ago, how he was bringing it in because he wanted to start gardening because he went gluten-free and he wanted to start growing his own food, which was fabulous. Wonderful idea. And I called the company and made a deal with them because he was bringing this stuff in by hand, loading up his truck. But you know what? We'll get back into that. Let's go back to this tree on what we just took out. So this California pepper tree wasn't the first one that had to go. Quite a few years ago, they had come to us on another tree, and there it is. And they had to remove this one. I'm not sure. It's been quite a few years, but I think this one was some sort of pine tree. Same issue. If it would have fallen, it could have taken out the power lines, and they just had to take it out. So now it's a home to a little lizard. There's my chair garden down below. And they chipped a lot of it even then and put it on the ground here. But we had a great fondness for this pepper tree. We liked it. It kind of shaded the house, even though the sun doesn't really go that way. But it was nice for the birds. Now, I've never seen birds nesting in it. I'm sure there were hummingbirds and small birds, but no big birds ever nested in that tree. So we really didn't have a choice, because if we would have said no, and let's say it did catch on fire, we're talking about neighbors and people around us. So it had to go. So they made a time on when they were coming, and they came yesterday. I'm telling you, they worked fast and hard in the heat. It was about 96 degrees and humidity was high, so it really was hot. But they came with their trucks, and Gary decided to go out and have a nice talk with them, because instead of just taking the tree completely down and hauling it off to the dump, all the wood chips, he figured, let's see if we can get something done. And why not? We know the tree, it's not sprayed, it's perfectly safe, it's a healthy tree, and well, he said, do what you have to do. And they managed to get their truck onto the property. Of course, as you see, they moved a lot of my containers, which turned out okay. I hadn't gotten to a lot of those to plant yet anyways. So they dragged them off to the side, Gary and the guys, and they brought their chipper in. Now, this particular truck and chipper isn't as big as the ones we had gotten 6 years ago. The truck was so massive, we had to have the whole driveway clear for them. And they never chipped on the property. They were chipping all over different areas and bringing the wood chips. And they were fortunate enough to be able to get their truck in the driveway as well as their chipper. So they were just hacking away at that tree and throwing it over the wall and then just loading it in the heat. You've got to have a lot of respect for these tree trimmers because they do a lot of dangerous, hard work. And the work they've got to do by dragging it, cutting it up, being very careful. And I didn't want to stand out there because that stuff is shooting everywhere. So I decided I'll come through my garden the other way. This is where my bird garden is. And I'll peek and see what's going on, go through the gates. So you can see more and get an appreciation of the work that they do. So there is their truck. And they've got that cherry picker on the top, which is interesting too. Right on their own truck with the chipper and everything. And there it is. So they trimmed it down, threw everything down below. And they just chipped away right there on the property. Now, they can't blow the chips everywhere. It has to go into their truck first. Otherwise, it would just be a scattered mess. So they chipped it on the property, and then they were looking for a place to put it. Now, that pepper tree, look how massive it is. That's the one that the Cooper hawks have nested in. That one's split in half. That's why you've got to be very careful with these pepper trees. They have a massive root system, and yes, they rob all the gardens, but they do have the ability to split when they're too big, and that doesn't always work out in our favor. So that's why this one had to go. Power lines going through there, splitting and falling on the house. We were fortunate enough that they found it and they paid for it because I have a friend that took out 3 trees, cost her over $10,000. I know somebody else that just trimmed some trees, cost them $5,000. Gary here is trying to figure out where to put the pile. I told him, yep, that's fine. It's not going to be in my way. And then recently I had a tree trimmer come by and say, hey, I'll trim this tree for you. And I figured, well, I was outside and I said, how much? He said $1,500. And I said, are you going to top it? Oh, no, we don't top trees. We just clean it up. $1,500 just to lightly trim a tree. So it is very expensive here in Southern California to get a lot of arborists to come out and trim for any decent price. It's going to be high, but this is why. They've got to have their equipment. And, oh, that's my wife's cam. And I got some good footage off of that, too, we can take a peek at. But it is a lot of hard work, and I understand that. And their labor, and then the gas, and then they normally go to the dump because people don't want it. So here, what he was doing is figuring out where to dump the wood chips. It's now already in the truck. They moved off the chipper, and I said, go ahead and put it under the pepper tree. I'll tell you, you'll see when they dump it. It wasn't as big as some of the other loads we used to get years ago. And that's what I was telling you the story, and I'll get back to that on how we got so many loads. But it really isn't going to be in the way, and I'm going to pick at it. I'm going to go through. It smells so good, too. I'm going to go through and grab handfuls and put that around a lot of my plants on the top. Yes, you can buy wood chips at the nurseries or hardware stores, Home Depot and Lowe's, but it's not the same. Don't get anything dyed. This is the leaves, the branches. You saw that the trunks they just cut up and they haul that away, or people get it for firewood. But this is the entire tree with all the nutrients in it. And it's mixed right now with green and brown, but that will change because it's going to turn all brown. But if I hit it with water when I, hose down and water my gardens, I can keep it where it's going to start to break down right away underneath. Think of the baskets Gary's making where he's putting all the weeds in and they're breaking down and turning into compost. Well, that's what the wood chips do. And yes, I can put some of that on the bottom of my totes. I can mix in some collard leaves with it, keep it well on the bottom so while it's down there breaking down, my plants will still grow on the top. Or I could just keep hitting it with water, and by next year I could dig into it and I'd have wonderful, rich compost. That is, if there's anything left. I don't know what he's planning to do with it, but I guess the whole idea was they're taking the tree out. Why have them haul it? So that's it. See, this is a small truck. I believe the other truck was like 2-3 times the size that used to bring it 6 years ago. So it's a small pile. And he could spread it out, but if he spreads it out, it will only break down under the layer that's spread. And if he leaves it this way, it'd be easier to dig a hole, get in there, and get the rich compost from the center. And I can mix that in with kitchen scraps and different things, because within weeks it's going to start to break down. So there's a lot you can do with it. If you see somebody chipping and they'll give you some, that is the best way to get wood chips. Because like I said, too many from the store, you go buy them in the bag, they're red, they're black, they're golden colored, they're painted, they're sprayed with dye. I don't want any dye on it. I want plain, real wood chips, like what's falling from the trees, coming down, breaking down, and creating compost soil. So that's what we want. So this worked out okay. But it is a lot of work. At least they had shade. I heard they went and had lunch under the pepper tree while they were there. But this worked out fantastic that they could get it into the driveway with moving just a few of my totes and not every single thing. And still they had room enough to turn around, though Gary did move all the cars. So so they can maneuver around the backyard. This is the reason we don't plant there. I mean, we have this whole area. We can make a massive garden. But sometimes we have family parties, and where else would they park? There's no street parking here. So we kind of left it all these years since we've had this property just for parking, and it's worked out quite well. But I thought some of you may get a kick out of seeing what was going on in the yard. And look at him, he's so excited. Oh, and I'm telling you, it smells so good. He's showing it and what he's going to do here. He's explaining that even sitting there, it will hold water for the trees, or putting it under plants. It helps retain moisture in the soil that the plants need so bad, especially in the heat of the summer. So that's it. Now they're going to lower that cherry picker back on top because, well, it can't be sitting there when they're tipping it. And they're going to pack up and leave. Now, I did hear they're coming back on Monday to finish the tree, and we'll get back into that. They're going to lower it, trim more off on the height, but they're not grinding it out. So that's why we'll get back into more on what they're doing. Now they've got to back their truck up and pick up their chipper. Believe you me, if they left the chipper by accident, Gary would be just tickled pink. But of course they're not. So anyways, they did have to go back because they had to move the chipper off the truck to dump the wood chips. Oh, they have a winch on the front too. I thought you might get a kick out of seeing this and what was going on. I mean, he hasn't had this for a while. Like I said, years ago, he wanted to start bringing in wood chips because their soil was so bad. And so he started picking it up first. He found somebody with a pile and he was loading up his truck. We've got all the videos on that. But then what I ended up doing is calling a company and saying, look, I'll make a deal with you. You can dump all you want, because we had the space here, as long as you'll move it around for us. So the tree company brought their bobcat, and wherever Gary pointed, after they dumped it, they moved it around. The reason they did that is it costs a small fortune to take that to the dump. I mean, it could be 100, it could be 400, depending on the size of the truck. So this way they were saving a lot of money. So they brought quite a few loads for Gary. The front yard here, because it was a blacktop parking lot, this little front area, like a parking spot, we just spread it along. Nothing really will grow really good in the ground because there's no soil. It's blacktop. But he spread it around after it was all dumped there, and it's nice. We don't park there. But back to the tree, there it is. So they're coming back and they'll take it further down, and then there's a bunch of branches left, but there's the pile. And I'm telling you, it smells incredible. It smells really good. And that's it. Now they're off and leaving. And they took the tree. It's quite open now, but look how many trees we have. So if the birds wanted to nest in some tree, they'll just use a different one. But I have never seen any large bird nesting in there. I'm sure there were goldfinches because they nest anywhere periodically, or hummingbirds. But there hasn't been a whole lot of hummingbird nests this year. It's been a change in the hummingbirds' pattern of the way they've been behaving. And that I should talk about too. But there it is. Now I just have to go through my totes and move everything back. And it was okay because there's a couple I wanted to turn around, and I wanted to take everything out and kind of mix in something in there, some leaf matter, and get some more plants growing, even if I do it in the fall for fall planting, because it's been hot and we are going into major heat waves. It looks like it could be 100 degrees here next week. And like they said, they can't work all day, these guys, because it's very hot. So due to the heat, they don't work as much. But there's the tree. That's what it looked like. What we're going to do, and that's why I said it's not a total loss, is they're going to take it down. It'll be about 3 foot tall, that big clump on the bottom, and the tree will continue to try to grow. We've got a pepper tree that Gary took out that's up against the house, and he hasn't, tried to kill it or anything, though he may at some point. It's right too close to the house. And with the city and brush clearance, you can't have it that close because we have the chimney and everything. So Gary had chopped it up. See how it's growing? He continues to take off the top, but with the one that's out front, he knows now once it's trimmed a little bit more, it could bush out. It could look like a lollipop. And all we'll have to do is make sure it doesn't go back into the power lines. And that's it. Oh, here's something. A clip from 6 years ago.
This is their pitchfork. This is mine. Mine looks like a toy.
Oh my God. Oh, so this is their professional one
I will
that
say,
they use.
Gary
Made in Austria.
loves his tools. And he was kind of admiring theirs compared to his. But of course, they have big jobs every single day. So what I'll do is I'll keep you informed on how it went. And they left us with the pile, which was fantastic. We will use it. You'll see it on garden tours. We'll see what they do next week when they come in the heat to finish grooming that tree down. And the roots of the tree are not being destroyed. So it will try to make a comeback. And if it's not a problem, we'll keep it. And from there, we'll see. And you all know how Gary did want to get a few more wood chips. He's gone through the piles. He's spread a lot out around the property. I mean, as you can look and see where I'm standing, that is all wood chips. It was spread out on the property. It's like a clay. It cracks. It floods there, and that's just the way it is. So anyways, now we've got a small pile of wood chips. We can use it here and there. Or who knows? He might load it in his truck and take it down to his garden. I just don't know what his plans are. But either way, I might grab some handfuls, throw it around my totes. And now I'm looking at all the work I've got to do because I can't move anything if they're coming back Monday. I don't think they're dumping anything. But, next week is another day. With that, have a wonderful day. And don't forget to eat what you grow. I hope you enjoyed this. So gardening and mulching with wood chips or even fallen leaves. Remember that. It's wonderful. Bye-bye.